Jen Mall, and welcome to Nurse Connect. I am an RN and a board certified nurse coach. I believe that connecting with others is essential to living a happy and fulfilled life, and that sharing our stories not only helps us to heal ourselves, but also helps others by inspiring hope and optimism. I am so grateful to share stories of these incredible nurses on their journey, and I encourage you to find a way to share yours too. Thanks for listening in. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Nurse Connect Podcast. I'm Jen Mall, and I've got Jessica here with me, which I know I feel like I say I'm always excited, but you are one of my very special guests because we were peer coaches in the Nurse Coach Collective in our Nurse Coach certification program. And we had actually connected even before we started that program. And we live in the same state. We have some mutual friends, and it was just all very fortuitous. And it's just so wonderful to finally have you on the podcast. So welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor, genuinely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Justin, why don't you take us back? Tell me, how did you become a nurse? What has your journey been? And we'll get to where you're at now.
Yeah, so I actually started out studying psychology, which is funny because, you kind of come full circle with these things. But I think a year into my freshman year of college, I was like, I'm not into this psychology thing. It was a little overwhelming. So I moved back home, and my dad was a volunteer firefighter and paramedic. So I was like, that's kind of cool. And I just took nursing thinking that would probably be cool. And I actually really loved it. So I kind of went into it with intention, but kind of fell into it at the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I took my time getting my nursing degree. I had kids in the middle of it. That was pretty wild. And I spent probably about 10-ish years on a med-surg floor. And it was really fun.
Yeah.
So it was kind of just a quick, it worked out for my personality. I love helping people. I'm an empath. Serving is easier for me. So it all just really worked and flowed well. So yeah, I'm a nurse of almost 16 years and a mom of 4, and it's been a lot. It's been a long, a lot of work.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that when we first connected, you were doing case management as well. How long are you still doing that work?
I actually am still doing case management.
Cool.
I'm doing a combination of case management and coaching. And I really do love case management. It's probably my favorite position that I've held as a nurse until coaching. Coaching is by far amazing. So what happened was I was working med-surg full time, and then I had my 4 kids at home. They were pretty darn young at this point. And the best way that I can describe it is the light just never turned off. Like there were, I was med-surg, so it was 5 patients, call lights constantly between the doctors and the patients and the care team. And then I would go home and there were call lights for days, 4 young kids and a husband and life and stuff. So I reached a point where I was royally burnt out. I mean, in every possible way that you can describe it. So I was we relocated back to the mountains and to the North State, and I was looking for ways to work from home. So through a few bumps and bruises, I finally made my way to case management, and that's how I got here. And it's pretty cool. Case management is fun for me because it's a lot more of the whole picture. You're not, in med-surg, I kind of was getting them ready for discharge, and then they would go home, and you just had such a small window. So case management was really fun in that sense.
That's great. And when I'm curious to take you back to that burnout phase, because I'm curious if that is what kind of was your initial, like, it's got to be something different. And was coaching on your radar at all then? Or how did you end up?
We all know that nursing has this plethora of options. There's so many things that you can do as a nurse. Like we have that in our mind. But for me, it was really limited. I couldn't really see what my options were. I felt like it was bedside.
Yes.
And so I was kind of dabbling and researching and figuring things out. But I think what really happened is that in every area of my life, I was burned out. Nursing,
Mhm.
of course, we all understand why we get burnout as nurses, with lack of resources and kind of a
Yes.
broken system. So we all have that. And then you add in losing yourself in life in general, which is what was happening. And a little bit of backstory for me is that for my particular upbringing and kind of the things that I experienced as a kid, well, in all of my life, not just as a child, I developed a mad gift for people pleasing and codependency. I mean,
Yep.
I had it down to a science. So what that led to was in all areas of my life, whether nursing, my marriage,
Yes.
relationships, friendships, self-care, any of it, I was more focused on making sure everyone was happy at the expense of keeping myself in a healthy state of mind or a healthy mind, body, spirit. And so naturally, when you don't take care of yourself, I was really good at it for a really long time.
Yes.
And all of my tricks stopped working. Everything
Yes.
stopped working. I was no longer able to control or manipulate situations to make them feel comfortable anymore. So I was
Right.
kind of forced in a beautiful way. I didn't feel it at the time, but forced into this burnout of saying, this is not what this is supposed to be like in
Right.
any area, whether it's as a nurse or as a wife or as a parent or a friend,
Yeah.
as a human being. So I hit what I thought was my rock bottom.
Mhm.
And I was crying out to God. My faith is everything. I was crying out to God and I said, I seriously need help here. And literally, the collective fell into my lap. On social media, which I kind of have a love-hate relationship with,
Yeah.
it's like the collective coaching. And I'm like, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
So I learned a little bit more about it. And obviously it was like, I'm going for this. And that was about a year and a half ago.
Mm.
Best decision I ever made, ever. It was,
Yeah.
and of course, that's where I met you. So
Yeah. Oh
that,
my gosh, I
that's
love
how
it.
coaching came into play. Like literally fell in my lap by the grace of God. So,
Oh, amazing, amazing. And so a lot of people, I feel we're like always preaching this because it truly is. How can you describe a little bit about your experience? Like, what is it about coaching that helps with this transformation? What needed the best decision of your life?
oh man,
I know it's a loaded question.
it is a loaded question. Like I wish we had a long time because I could really explain this. But basically, I think that for me personally, there's all the cool things about coaching. It's beautiful. It's
Mhm.
tapping into the part of us nurses that really calls us into this profession anyway,
Mhm.
this gifting we have to connect with people.
Mhm.
So all of those fun things are there. But for me, coaching was a moment in time where I was I wasn't forced. That's not the right word. I was given a
Pushed
very
hard.
intentional opportunity to make a decision, and it was
Yes.
not anyone else's decision to make. It was an
Mm.
opportunity where I was in a place saying, Jessica, who do you want to be?
Mm.
Who is God? Who is Jessica? What are my relationships? What do I want my relationships to look like? Who do I want to be as a nurse? And it was no longer, I describe it as this: I was in an open door prison.
Mm.
And with the collective and all the programs that I did in that year time, what they did for me was helped me recognize I am in that prison. Pardon my children.
Oh, I
I
can
am
hear.
in that prison, but I don't have to be. And for the first time in my life, I realized I no longer needed to be a survivor.
Mm.
I was no longer a victim. And I had everything in me that I needed to be able to step out and be the person that God wants me to be, that I want to be. And it was very, very empowering. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. It was
Mhm.
the bravest thing I've ever done. And it was the most empowering and transformative thing I have ever done, was stepping out of the open door prison. So
Incredible.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And I do think it's hard. It's hard to describe it. You did it beautifully. I love the metaphor you used. Um, but it is hard unless you've lived it, unless you've experienced coaching or going through the program, because even the program itself, I mean, was worth every penny, right? Just to have that own transformation for ourselves and connecting with others. But then being able to like transition in that into helping others on their journey. And living that healing journey, which is nonstop, right? It just changes, but it is now, you have the ability to do what you need to do, what you want to do, what's best for you, what you're being called to do.
Yeah, and I think that's my favorite part of sharing coaching. I'll tell you a little bit. One of my favorite clients ever, it's just so wild and fun, is that I'm actually a certified neuro nurse coach. So I took certifications in both neuro coaching and nurse coaching. So that's my doggy.
That's life.
So what I do specifically is work around that body, mind, spirit connection, right? And really slowing down and being able to hear ourselves and listen to ourselves. But with neuro coaching, it's identifying those automations of those patterns in our subconscious that dictate, how many times have we're like, why do I keep doing this? Like, it's not what not what I believe. It's not what I want, but I do it before I can even think about it. So identifying those automations and rewiring and reversing them. And the other really cool thing is applying that in the sense of really paying attention to your body and noticing those moments of anxiety, of fear, of panic, of shame, and taking the time to listen and say, what are you protecting me from? What are you telling me here? And what a good coach is going to do is create that safe space to allow you to work through that. We don't have the answers, but we have that ability to create a safe space and ask the right questions to allow you to walk through that in the time and the way and the place that you're intended to do that. And it's the most wildly beautiful thing. So cool.
That is super cool. And bringing that full circle, how you mentioned that psychology was, or did you say psych was your first major?
Yes.
Yeah. And how intertwined that is, because it's like, it is all related. And if we're not identifying, and sometimes it's like we can't see it ourselves, but when somebody else helps bring it to the surface and helps you sit with it for a little bit, like that safe space, it allows you to identify, okay, that's a habit I want to change, or this feeling in my body is related to this. Now, how can I work it out and work through it?
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yes.
Yeah. I love it. Love it. And so do you find that when you're coaching with somebody, that these things just kind of come up naturally? How do you kind of start to identify and help others figure out kind of what is that? I don't know if root issue is the right word, but
yeah, I mean, everyone is different, so I kind of approach them in different ways. I think for the most part, with most of my clients, we need a lot of help pulling these things out. And by help, I don't mean like I'm going in and like fine tooth combing my patient or my clients, but it's just asking questions, causing us to think. And the areas that we dive into are the ones that trigger. If you're feeling panic, if you're feeling fear, I'm not going to go dive into something that's really fearful for a patient. And we obviously really encourage following through with a therapist when that's appropriate. But when you notice things that are like, I don't know, like that's causing something in me, that's a place we explore, and it's an opportunity for some amazing freedom, healing. Yeah,
absolutely. So if somebody's interested in kind of starting to, like, maybe they're not like ready to jump in, but they're kind of like getting curious, and maybe they are burned out. Maybe they're, it's so hard, because I think we automatically want to blame the system for the burnout. And there are lots of problems with the system. I'm not at all trying to justify a lot of the challenges that are currently in our healthcare system. But like you mentioned, it's usually multifaceted. We tend to be, as nurses, empath, natural caregivers, codependent, whether we realize it or not. And so we've got life and work all kind of conspiring against us, and we're not taking care of ourselves. So maybe if you could give some suggestions for somebody who's starting to, like, maybe they're really deep in the burnout, they're feeling it. but they're maybe not quite ready to commit to a coach, what would maybe be the suggestions maybe you would say for areas they can start? Yeah.
Well, I was wondering if I was going to bring this up. So I
Oh,
was I was very overwhelmed one day, and I'm driving home. I dropped my kids off at school. I'm about to jump into my case management job, and I was praying, and I'm like, God, I am so overwhelmed. Like, I know things. That's the thing. We all know stuff. That's the people that I love to connect with. We have all the knowledge. We know things. We
mhm,
know self-care, but how to apply it is different. It's harder.
mhm,
So what God showed me on the way home was this tree of three. And when I get this tunnel vision and I get hyper focused on the overwhelm, or I don't know where to start, or I feel so behind, and I'm doing all these things and I don't really feel like I have much fruit to show for it.
mhm,
What pulls me back out and gives me this greater perspective to be able to know what the next step is God, nature, and community. And when
mm,
I spend time in those three things, I always regain perspective and regain footing and give myself the freedom and the wisdom to be able to take the next step that's intended for me, whether that's coaching or, a yoga class or, whatever it is. And by those, I mean, with God, for me, it's spending time with Him in prayer and meditation
mhm,
and the Word.
mhm.
In nature, for me, I live in the mountains. To go out into the mountains and smell the dirt and have my feet in the dirt, actually. And in community, that's spending time with the people that build me up, the people that bring life into me, the people that encourage me. I have coaches myself. I'm in a nurse coaching community currently. I have a neuro family that I stay connected with. Of course, my immediate family and my friends, my church family. When I feel myself kind of stuck and not sure where to go, I tap
Mhm.
into one of those three things or all three. And it just magically shifts me backward to where I regain perspective, and every time I get the clarity for the next step.
Yes, I love that.
I do too. It's 100% effective so far.
Good, good. I will definitely try that because I really like the idea of, okay, I've got a couple like pillars is the word coming to me, but I love your vision of the trees.
Yeah, I'm a
Um,
tree girl.
yeah, you are. Yeah, I love the oaks, right?
Mighty
Yes.
oak.
Yeah, yeah. But just like to be able to take a breath and step back because like you said, we can get so overwhelmed with all the day-to-day details and then not being sure what to do. And when we're overthinking, we're not able to listen to God, to others, to ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Of course, yeah. It's been so beautiful. And, you know, I know every single part of our earth is beautiful.
Mm.
I'm partial. I can't believe that I get to live in Northern California. Um, and I'm telling you to go outside, to set everything down and to just go outside and put your feet in the dirt, smell the pine for me. I have pine, smell the pine. Um, and just sit with yourself and allow yourself to breathe. It will center you and it will bring you back to where you need to be every time.
Mhm, mhm. I'm curious if you meet resistance, not maybe for yourself, like when you know the thing you're supposed to do, that you know what will help you feel better. But I'm thinking back to 5 years ago. I knew the right thing to do. I knew I needed to move my body. I knew I needed to not be taking care of everybody else. Um, but I felt guilty. I felt guilty for taking care of myself because I felt like I was taking away something from somebody else, my kid, my mother-in-law, who I was a very codependent caregiver for, my work family. Do you have any suggestions on how, and just knowing you're a busy working mom, like how can you kind of like, I don't even say justify because I know that's not it. We don't need to justify it. But what are your thoughts around that mom guilt or
Yeah.
nurse guilt?
So this is what I do. That's such a great question. So I face resistance on a daily basis. I have a serious problem with busyness being my numbing out agent, right? I mean, I
Yes.
am the queen of busyness. Ask my sister. It's actually pretty scary. I'm so much better than I was. And that brings me into my answer. When you're in community, you have that natural accountability and that natural reminder as to why you're doing this. So, and then that's true with God and nature as well. What I have found has been crazy effective for me is I have a board, it's right behind this computer. And on the board, I write down my whys and I write down my wins and my reminders. And all of those things are those profound moments inspired by God, nature, and community on why I'm doing this. And that has every time kicked me out of that resistance and reminded me, you know what? Turning your computer off and going on a walk with your kids is literally transforming the outcome of your kids' future. You are showing your kids what health is.
Yes.
Going to the gym. Oh, this is a really hard one for me. I have a really hard time not going to every one of my kids' games because all of my kids are in sports.
Yeah. 4
I
kids,
have
that's a lot.
so many kids and there's so many games. Do not go to a game and to go do yoga or to go for a walk instead. I mean, talk about mom guilt.
Yeah.
But when I look at that board and I remind myself that showing my kids that taking time for yourself and building up that self-care and valuing myself as much as I value my children is literally setting a path for my kids to thrive when they're adults. They're watching that. So when you put that perspective on it, I mean, I'm going for the walk. I'm turning the computer off and I'm going for a walk because I will do anything to give my kids that kind of value and victory and freedom as an adult. How's that?
That is beautiful. I love that. I love it. And you're modeling breaking generational patterns,
Yeah.
habits, traumas, right? You're doing this work because you don't want your kids to be, in the same boat, struggling in the same places that you have been. And it's beautiful that you're modeling that. You're not just saying you should do this, you're actually showing them how to do it.
Yeah. And all you need is that little perspective shift to be able to get into that mindset, right? So that's why it has to be like huge bold print up here yelling at Jessica, listen, this is why you turn off your computer and go take that walk. So it's
I
pretty
love that.
powerful.
Yeah, I love that. And I have a little board sitting right here that's pretty empty. I'm thinking I could do something like that. I like that idea a lot. And it's just a great visual reminder. It's like I've got that stuff rattling around up here, but sometimes when it gets noisy, I forget about those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course. Of course. Yeah. It's been a really I will say this, I'm very drawn to the onion layer concept. I mean, I relate to it so much. And the thing that I'm finding freedom from of recent is that we have these layers and we're working on this outer layer and it takes so much to get through it. I mean, anyone who is working through these layers, in my opinion, is incredibly brave and strong and courageous and beautiful. And that layer gets peeled back and there's such beauty and victory in that. And then the next layer comes. And it's easy to see that as a backstep or a failure. And I really got hung up on that in the beginning. And it took a lot for me to get the oomph to work on that next layer again, because I was so defeated so easily. And I guess my recommendation is to keep going, to just keep going and keep pursuing community, God and nature, keep pursuing the coaching containers that are working for you, because I'm a year and a half into this and I actually peeled back a layer and the next one came and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. Like the next layer means I'm getting deeper and that's a huge win. I actually saw my perspective change automatically because those automations were rewired in my brain, if that makes sense.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That is exciting.
So keep going. Keep going.
Very good. Keep going, because you're right. And you mentioned the feeling defeated or feeling like a failure in the beginning. That was how, because it's just what you're used to. You're used to like, oh, I screwed up again. Like here, this is my punishment. But being able to rewire your brain, being able to change your perspective, that is such a beautiful gift. that I don't think you earn that gift until you really are doing the work.
Yeah.
And then you realize what's going on and you're like, okay, this might suck for a little bit, but it's
Yeah.
going to be better in the end. And you start to like talk to yourself differently and appreciate that work because it frees you. It allows you to walk out of that open door prison, as you mentioned, to be able to walk out and be like, I can breathe.
Yeah. And another version of the onion layer is that open door prison. What I have found is I'm spending less and less time in there. I am, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it was in the last couple of months I realized that. I was like, man, I haven't been in there for a while. And that's pretty cool. And then the other thing that's cool is when I am in the open door prison, is I'm much quicker to say, I don't have to hang out in here. I actually
Mm-hmm.
have the tools and the giftings and the abilities to step out of here and go put my feet in the green grass in the sunshine.
Yeah. Yeah.
It happens
Yeah.
quick.
It does. It does. But it's happened over time, right? So this is at least a year and a half. I'm sure you were doing work
Oh,
before that, but it's probably accelerating this last year and a half.
yeah.
And it feels really overwhelming when you're first stepping into the work. Like
Yes.
I'm not, it's taking too long. I'm not where I want to be. But you just have to keep going. Just
Yeah.
keep taking those small steps. One little shift here, one little shift there,
Mhm.
over time. And then suddenly you're like, yep, that's not where I want to be. All right, I'm going to shift things because I don't want
Yeah,
to be here.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's, a shameless plug for coaching, to have
Mm-hmm.
a coach with you while you're walking through that process. To have somebody just walk alongside you and say, I hear you, I see you, you are doing this, keep going. Like it's such a beautiful thing that you cannot put into words until you've been through
Yeah.
it. And I know anyone who has had a coach screams this from the mountaintops. Like
Yes.
all coaches have coaches for a reason.
Yeah.
So to have somebody in your space in that community sense that is safe and just walks along while you do that is profound and powerful.
It
And
is.
I wish it for everybody. Everybody.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Jess.
Yeah.
Ah, so as we're wrapping up this last few minutes, I just want to see, is there anything else on your heart that is calling to you to speak out in the space today?
Ugh, I feel like we hit such good stuff today, but I
Mhm.
think that not but and step into using your voice and taking up space.
Mhm.
Every single person has such a divine appointment to be here. There's a reason, and everyone is so beautifully gifted, and I feel like it's just such a needed time for everyone to step into themselves and use their voice and share their story. Stories are everything. So I want to hear more stories. I want to hear more people's stories. Genuinely. Yeah,
I'm getting triggered because that is literally why I'm doing this, because I think it's really important
it is.
as well. And it can feel awkward and hard to like kind of toot your own horn and share what you're doing. But I think this is important. It's important that we share the work we're doing. It's important that we say you're not alone. Me too. Like we all are struggling in some capacity with VR stuff looks a little different, but underlying we're all humans having a shared experience, and it's really important to talk about the work that we're doing on ourselves and with each other, because that's how we heal. That's how we love. That's how we support each other.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Jess. This has been beautiful. I'm so grateful for your time and to see your beautiful face today. Thank you.
Guys.
All right. Take care, everybody.